It seems increasingly likely that Canada will see some kind of recession in the months ahead, though it is less clear how bad that recession will be. Young people have a lot riding on the answer to that. People who enter the workforce during a recession actually face a lifetime drag on their incomes. The effect is not short-lived. Meanwhile, shifting technologies and industry make it even more challenging for young people today to prepare themselves for the jobs of tomorrow. Tricia Williams is the Director of Research, Evaluation and Knowledge Mobilization with the Future Skills Center. Tricia, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
So on the one hand, there's some gloom, and it's justified that there may be a recession coming that could affect young people particularly. And yet we have this tight labor market. So when you think about kind of how young people are situated in the job market today, is it a good picture or a bad one?
Well, I think, it's understandably confusing for people when they hear that young people may be at risk, but they're seeing all these job wanted signs and understand that hiring is at an all-time crunch period. But I think one of the key things is we're mindful that young people don't have as smooth of an entry to the labor market as maybe they do in other periods. When there's this period of economic uncertainty, it's often young people that are the most vulnerable and they face the most risk in terms of their transitions into labor.
We saw, of course, at the start of this show that young people in Canada are well educated. And so they've got the benefit of that. And yet we have this sense, Tricia, that the skills they will need in the years ahead might change. There's lots of new technology coming that we understand will upend different industries. What is the best way for somebody to think about the skills they need and how they might need to adapt over time?
Yeah, it's such a marked shift from past generations where maybe you did your schooling and your skills training early in your years and your kind of education pathway, and then you went off into the working world and that's where you stayed. And I think young people now are facing a reality that they're going to have to continually upgrade their skills and their ability to learn new things, adapt to new technologies, and take on new responsibilities. And one of the things I think we're paying close attention to is how much are people getting those opportunities, or where is skills training really happening? And a lot of people are not necessarily getting that in the workforce as much as they want to be and as much as they probably need to be.
In fact, you could argue that that's one thing that we've really stopped seeing, right? Companies don't actually invest the way they did once upon a time in the skills of their labor force. Maybe it's because employees are less loyal than they used to be. Young people especially tend to change jobs a lot. Where is the right place to get the skills that they need if it's not at the office?
Yeah, we released some research earlier this year that showed that Canada's really lagging its OECD peers in terms of skills training investments, particularly that's funded by employers. So I think it's a lot, the onus rests on young people themselves to find out the opportunities and to look for the kind of training opportunities, LinkedIn Learning, whether it's free courses or the kind of informal mentorship and career advancement that they can find.
Of course, there's this kind of sense that if you can understand technology, if you know how to code, if you can embrace AI, then there'll be lots of opportunity for you. Most people, I think we can say, aren't in that category. Most people aren't that comfortable with technology, especially brand new technologies. So when we think about kind of the future skills, what's your advice to people who are worried about that?
I mean, I think one of the opportunities of the younger generation is they are digital natives, right? But they're also, in addition to knowing technology in a very intimate sense, they're also a generation that is used to flexibility and adaptability. So if you think about the young people kind of entering the labor force right now, they just went through the last few years of like online schooling, remote work, like navigating a lot of change and upheaval. And I'm actually quite optimistic that this generation will be really poised to do well in the labor market of the future because they are so used to adapting and learning as they go.
All key. Tricia, great to have you with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Tricia Williams, Director of Research, Evaluation and Knowledge Mobilization with the Future Skills Center. Time for the takeaway and solving a problem with market power. When it comes to finding affordable housing, one of the places where it is most acutely felt is for students. Often overlooked as a group, young people working towards an education are increasingly finding themselves on the very short end of the housing stick. Add in 750,000 international students all vying for the same type of housing, and you have a sizable problem. Limited available rentals is just the start of that problem. What we find is young people living in situations they should not, sometimes unscrupulous landlords taking advantage, and a pool of vulnerable people who can then be exploited by unfair working conditions at jobs they can't afford not to have. None of it sounds like the kind of country we aim for. One solution: universities provide housing options for first-year students in the form of residences, after which they're on their own. But maybe if these large institutions were responsible for ensuring adequate housing for all their students, including those highly lucrative international students, they would use some local clout to ensure housing existed. Similarly, maybe any employer making use of a temporary worker permit should be required to confirm housing. The same might be said of the federal government itself, which has lofty immigration goals that often skew to younger people, but no plan to ensure adequate housing once those newcomers arrive. For students, having a safe and dignified place to live is an essential part of the process. As the data show, education and income go hand in hand. But perhaps more important, if we get it right, education is our ticket to staying in the game. Young people being the best shot we have at staying on top of new technologies and ideas and having the right skills to meet the challenges ahead. My takeaway? We keep talking about housing as if it's someone else's problem. Until we make it our own and force some big players to do the same, nothing will change. That's Taking Stock for this week. Thanks for being with us.